Snow fell in silent sheets across the empty train platform as Emma Matthews clutched her threadbare coat tighter around her shoulders. Tears froze on her cheeks before they could fall. The last train had departed hours ago, leaving nothing but darkness, cold, and broken promises. She never imagined spending Christmas night abandoned at Willow Creek's depot with nowhere to go, until headlights cut through the darkness and a stranger's kindness would change everything. If you're enjoying this story, please hit that like button and subscribe to our channel for more heartwarming tales that remind us of the unexpected ways love finds us when we need it most. Emma Matthews had always prided herself on careful planning. As the new schoolteacher in Promise Valley, she'd arranged everything meticulously for her Christmas visit home, or so she thought. Now, watching the taillights of her ride disappear down the snowy road, that planning meant nothing. Her cousin had forgotten her, the station was closed for the holiday, and her phone battery had died hours ago. The wooden bench beneath her felt like ice through her thin dress pants. She'd packed light for the 3-day trip to her parents' home in Billings, expecting to be there already, surrounded by warmth and family. Instead, she sat alone at the Willow Creek Depot, a tiny whistle stop between nowhere and nothing, with no way forward and no way back. "Some Christmas," she whispered, her breath clouding in the frigid air. The town of Willow Creek was little more than a collection of buildings a quarter-mile from the depot, their windows dark for the holiday. Emma had arrived just that August to teach at the Promise Valley School 15 miles away, and while she'd made acquaintances, she hadn't formed the kind of friendships where she could knock on a door at 10 p.m. on Christmas night. She checked her watch again. 3 hours since the last train had departed. 4 hours since her cousin was supposed to pick her up. 5 hours until the first morning train, if it even ran on December 26th. The wind picked up, driving needles of ice against her face. Emma stood, stamping her feet to restore circulation, and walked the length of the platform for the 20th time. Her suitcase, containing gifts for her family and her one good dress, sat forlornly beside the bench. "I won't cry," she told herself firmly, even as her throat tightened. "I'm 24 years old. I can handle one difficult night." But it wasn't just any night. It was Christmas, her first away from home. She'd promised her mother she'd make it back, had assured her worried father that yes, Cousin Jared was reliable transportation from the depot. Now she imagined them sitting by the phone, wondering why she hadn't called to say she'd arrived safely. The distant rumble of an engine made her heart leap. Headlights appeared on the road leading to the depot, and Emma rushed to the edge of the platform, waving her arms frantically. The vehicle, a truck, she could see now, slowed and turned into the small parking area. Hope surged through her veins. Maybe Jared had remembered after all. Maybe. The truck door opened, and a tall figure emerged. Even in the dim light, Emma could tell immediately it wasn't her cousin. This man was broader, taller, moving with a deliberate grace that spoke of physical work and quiet confidence. "Hello?" she called, suddenly aware of how vulnerable she was. "I'm waiting for a ride." The man approached the platform, his boots crunching in the snow. As he stepped into the pool of light from the single working lamp, Emma saw a face weathered by sun and wind, dark eyes assessing her with concern, and a strong jaw shadowed with stubble. He wore a sheepskin coat and a cowboy hat dusted with snow. "Station's closed," he said, his voice deep and rough-edged. "Has been since 6. You been out here all this time?" Emma straightened her shoulders. "My ride didn't show. I'm waiting for the morning train." "That's 12 hours from now, ma'am. And it's dropping to 15 below tonight." "I'll be fine," she said, though they both knew it was a lie. The man studied her for a long moment, then sighed, a cloud of vapor dissipating in the cold air. "I'm Caleb Thornton. I ranch about 8 miles outside town. Was heading home from my sister's place when I saw the light on here." He gestured to the lamp. "Thought maybe someone forgot to turn it off. Didn't expect to find anyone actually waiting." Emma hesitated. Her mother's warnings about strangers echoed in her mind, but the alternative was a night in potentially deadly cold. "I'm Emma Matthews," she said finally. "The new teacher at Promise Valley School." Recognition flickered in his eyes. "My nephew's in your class. Tommy Thornton. Talks about you all the time." The connection, however tenuous, eased some of her worry. "Tommy's a bright boy. His essay on ranch life was one of the best in the class." Caleb nodded, a hint of pride crossing his features before concern returned. "Miss Matthews, you can't stay here. My sister Maggie's place is back in town. She'd be happy to put you up for the night." Emma glanced at the dark, silent town. "It's Christmas night. I couldn't impose. Trust me, Maggie would be more upset knowing I left you here." He took a step closer, keeping a respectful distance. "Look, I understand your caution. But it's not safe, and you know it." Emma looked around at the empty platform, the darkened station house, the endless night ahead. Her toes had gone numb inside her fashionable but impractical boots, and exhaustion weighed on her shoulders. "All right," she conceded. "Thank you, Mr. Thornton." "Caleb," he corrected, reaching for her suitcase. "Let's get you warmed up." The heat in his truck hit her like a wave as she climbed in, making her realize just how cold she'd become. Caleb placed her suitcase in the back seat and slid behind the wheel, his large hands competent on the steering wheel as he turned the vehicle around. "Mind if I ask who left you stranded on Christmas?" he asked as they pulled away from the depot. "My cousin Jared. He lives in Billings but was supposed to be visiting family here. Said he'd pick me up and drive me the rest of the way." Emma sighed. "I should have confirmed again yesterday, but with the school Christmas program and getting all my students' gifts ready, I just forgot." Caleb nodded, eyes on the snowy road. "Family can be complicated." "He's not usually unreliable," Emma said, feeling oddly defensive of her absent cousin. "Something must have happened." "Maybe so." Caleb's tone held no judgment. "Your family must be worried." "They are, I'm sure. My phone died hours ago. We'll call them from Maggie's." They drove in silence for a few minutes, the truck's headlights cutting through swirling snow. Emma studied her rescuer surreptitiously. In the dashboard light, she could see the fine lines around his eyes, the set of his mouth that suggested he didn't smile often but meant it when he did. "Thank you," she said quietly. "For stopping. Most people wouldn't have." "Most people around here would," he corrected. "That's one thing about small towns, we look out for each other." "I'm still getting used to that," Emma admitted. "I grew up in Seattle before my parents moved to Billings. In the city, people tend to mind their own business." "And how are you finding Promise Valley?" Caleb asked, turning onto the main street of Willow Creek, such as it was, a handful of storefronts, all dark now except for Christmas lights twinkling in windows. "It's an adjustment. The children are wonderful, though. They make it worthwhile." Caleb pulled up in front of a small, neat house with a wreath on the door and warm light spilling from the windows. "Looks like Maggie's still up," he said, sounding relieved. Before Emma could respond, the front door opened and a woman appeared, wrapped in a cardigan. "Caleb? I thought you'd be halfway home by now. Is everything?" She stopped when she saw Emma emerging from the passenger side. "Oh. Hello there. Maggie, this is Miss Matthews, Tommy's teacher," Caleb explained, retrieving Emma's suitcase. "Found her stranded at the depot. Her ride didn't show." Maggie's expression shifted immediately from curiosity to concern. "You poor thing. On Christmas night, too. Come in, come in. I've got coffee on, and plenty of leftovers from dinner." Emma found herself ushered into a warm kitchen that smelled of cinnamon and pine. A small Christmas tree twinkled in the corner of the adjoining living room, and a fire crackled in the wood stove. The contrast to the cold, empty platform was so stark that Emma felt tears threatening again. "I'm so sorry to intrude on your holiday," she began, but Maggie waved away her apology. "Nonsense. No one should be alone on Christmas, especially not stranded in the cold. Now, let me take your coat, and you sit right here." She pulled out a chair at the kitchen table. "Caleb, pour her some coffee while I heat up some food." Caleb hung his hat on a peg by the door and shrugged out of his coat, revealing a red flannel shirt that stretched across broad shoulders. He moved with easy familiarity in his sister's kitchen, pouring coffee into a mug decorated with painted cardinals. "Cream or sugar?" he asked, placing the mug in front of Emma. "Both, please." Her hands trembled slightly as she wrapped them around the warm ceramic. "And may I use your phone to call my parents? They must be frantic by now." "Of course," Maggie said, placing a cordless phone beside her. "Take your time. I'll just be warming up some food." Emma dialed her parents' number, relieved when her mother answered on the second ring. "Mom, it's me. I'm so sorry." "Emma. Thank God. We've been worried sick. Where are you? Is everything all right?" Emma explained the situation as briefly as possible, aware of Caleb and Maggie trying to give her privacy while remaining in the same room. "I'm safe now," she concluded. "Some very kind people are looking after me." "Put one of them on the phone," her father's voice came through, gruff with concern. Emma glanced up. "My father would like to speak with one of you." Caleb stepped forward and took the phone. "This is Caleb Thornton, sir." He listened for a moment. "Yes, sir. My sister Maggie will be putting her up for the night. We can figure out transportation tomorrow when the weather clears." Another pause. "No trouble at all. My nephew's in her class. She's in good hands, I promise you that." The conversation continued for another minute before Caleb handed the phone back to Emma. Her father's voice was noticeably calmer when he spoke again. "He sounds like a decent man, Emma. But you be careful, you hear?" "I will, Dad. I'll call you tomorrow when I figure out how to get to Billings. Don't worry about that now. Just stay safe and warm. We love you, sweetheart." "Love you too. Merry Christmas." When she hung up, Maggie was placing a plate of turkey, mashed potatoes, and cranberry sauce in front of her. "Eat up," she urged. Nothing worse than being cold and hungry. Emma hadn't realized how famished she was until the first bite hit her tongue. She ate gratefully while Maggie bustled around, preparing a guest room, and Caleb sat across from her, nursing his own coffee. "Your parents okay now?" he asked. Emma nodded. "Much better, thank you. My father's protective. As he should be." Caleb's eyes met hers briefly before looking away. "Family's important." There was something in his tone that made Emma curious, but before she could ask, Maggie returned. "The guest room's all ready. It's small, but the bed's comfortable. And I've put out some toiletries and a nightgown that should fit you." "You're too kind," Emma said, overwhelmed by the generosity of these strangers. "I don't know how to thank you." "No need for thanks," Maggie assured her. "Now, Caleb, are you staying too? The sofa's yours if you want it. That storm's getting worse." Caleb hesitated, looking out the window at the thickening snow. "Might be wise," he admitted. "Road to the ranch could be dicey by now." "Then it's settled. We'll all have Christmas breakfast together tomorrow." Maggie beamed, clearly pleased to have company. "Now, Miss Matthews." "Emma, please." "Emma. You must be exhausted. Let me show you to your room." The guest room was small but cozy, with a patchwork quilt on the bed and a small window that revealed only darkness and swirling snow. Emma thanked Maggie again, then found herself alone for the first time since Caleb had discovered her at the depot. She sat on the edge of the bed, emotions washing over her in waves. Relief at being safe and warm. gratitude for the kindness of strangers. Lingering anxiety about how she would get to Billings. And something else, something unexpected, a flutter of interest when she thought of Caleb Thornton's dark eyes and the careful way he'd looked after her. "Don't be ridiculous," she whispered to herself. "The man rescued you from freezing to death. Of course you feel something." Still, as she changed into the borrowed nightgown and slipped between clean sheets, Emma found herself wondering about the rancher. What was his story? Why had he been alone on Christmas night, driving back from his sister's instead of staying with family? Sleep claimed her before she could ponder these questions further, the exhaustion of the day pulling her into dreams where snow fell endlessly and a tall figure with kind eyes offered his hand through the storm. Morning arrived with pale sunlight filtering through the guest room window. For a moment, Emma was disoriented, forgetting where she was. Then the events of the previous night came rushing back, and she sat up, listening to the sounds of movement in the kitchen. She dressed quickly in yesterday's clothes, grateful that at least they were clean, and made her way down the short hallway. The scene that greeted her was unexpectedly domestic, Maggie at the stove flipping pancakes, and Caleb at the counter slicing fruit. "Good morning," she said hesitantly. They both turned, Maggie with a warm smile and Caleb with a nod that somehow conveyed both acknowledgement and respect. "Merry Christmas." "Well, the day after Christmas," Maggie corrected herself. "How did you sleep?" "Better than I expected to," Emma admitted. "Thank you again for taking me in." "Our pleasure. Now sit down and have some coffee. Breakfast is almost ready." Emma took the same seat she'd occupied the night before. Caleb placed a mug of coffee in front of her, prepared with cream and sugar just as she liked it. The small gesture of remembrance touched her. "Thank you," she said, looking up at him. "You're welcome." His voice was even deeper in the morning, as if he hadn't used it much yet today. "Roads are still bad. Called the station while you were sleeping. No trains running today." Emma's heart sank. "Oh. I see." "Don't worry," Maggie said, bringing a stack of pancakes to the table. "We'll figure something out." "Caleb, the syrup please." They ate breakfast together, the conversation flowing more easily than Emma would have expected. Maggie was naturally talkative, filling silences with stories about the town and questions about Emma's teaching. Caleb spoke less but listened intently, occasionally adding a comment or asking a thoughtful question. Emma learned that Maggie was a widow with one son, Tommy, who lived with her in town during the school year but spent summers at Caleb's ranch. Caleb had inherited the family ranch 5 years ago when their parents retired to Arizona. Neither mentioned other family, and Emma wondered if they were all each other had. "So," Maggie said as they finished eating, "about getting you to Billings. The radio says the main roads should be cleared by afternoon, but the train won't be running until tomorrow at the earliest." "I hate to impose any further," Emma began, but Caleb interrupted. "I need to drive into Billings tomorrow anyway. Ranch supplies," he added when both women looked at him questioningly. "Could take you then, if you don't mind waiting another day." Emma hesitated. Another day away from her family, but the alternative was trying to find another ride or waiting for an uncertain train. "That would be very kind," she said finally. "If you're sure it's not too much trouble." "No trouble," he said simply. "Then it's settled," Maggie declared. "You'll stay here tonight, and Caleb will take you tomorrow. Now, who wants more pancakes?" The day passé. The years passed like seasons on the ranch, sometimes harsh, sometimes gentle, but always changing, always moving forward. Emma and Caleb were married the following spring in a simple ceremony at the ranch, wildflowers dotting the fields and mountains standing sentinel in the distance. Maggie had cried happy tears, and Tommy had proudly carried the rings, his chest puffed out with importance. Emma continued teaching at Promise Valley School, her classroom becoming known throughout the county for its warmth and innovation. She started a reading program that brought parents and community members in to share stories with the children, bridging generations and strengthening the bonds of their small town. Caleb was a frequent visitor, the children gathering around him as he showed them the small wooden animals he carved, teaching them about the wildlife that surrounded their homes. Their first child, a daughter they named Hope, arrived 2 years after their wedding. She had Caleb's dark eyes and Emma's curious spirit, toddling after her father around the ranch and sitting in her mother's lap during story time. A son, Daniel, followed 3 years later, quiet and watchful like Caleb but with Emma's quick smile. Life wasn't always easy. The ranch faced drought years and harsh winters. The school struggled with funding cuts and changing educational mandates. There were arguments and misunderstandings, moments of doubt and exhaustion. But through it all, Emma and Caleb faced each challenge together, their partnership stronger for having been forged in that moment of serendipity on a snowy Christmas night. 10 years after they met, Emma stood at the window of their ranch house, watching snow fall in the gathering dusk. Behind her, the sounds of family filled the warm space. Maggie and Tommy, now a tall young man studying agriculture at the state university, setting the table, Hope and Daniel decorating gingerbread cookies with more enthusiasm than skill, and Caleb stoking the fire in the hearth. "Penny for your thoughts," Caleb said, coming to stand beside her at the window. Emma leaned into him, drawing strength from his solid presence. "Just thinking about how different my life would be if my cousin had remembered to pick me up that night." Caleb's arm slipped around her waist. "Still believe it was chance that brought us together?" "Maybe not," Emma admitted. "Sometimes I think there was something more at work." They had never reconnected with her cousin Jared. Years later, Emma had learned he'd been in a minor car accident that Christmas Day, nothing serious, but enough to send his plans into disarray and cause him to forget his promise to pick her up. What had seemed like carelessness had been circumstance, one of many small events that had aligned to bring her and Caleb together. "Mom! Dad! Come see the cookies!" Hope called from the kitchen. "We're coming," Emma answered, but lingered a moment longer at the window. "Everything all right?" Caleb asked, his voice low with concern. Emma turned to face him, reaching up to touch the lines that time and weather had etched around his eyes. He was still the same man who had found her that night, steady, kind, thoughtful, but the years together had softened his edges, just as they had strengthened her. "Everything is perfect," she said. "I was just thinking that I should write our story down someday. How a schoolteacher was abandoned at a depot on Christmas night, and how a rancher found her." "Sounds like a story worth telling," Caleb agreed, his eyes warm with memory. "The best part," Emma said, rising on tiptoe to kiss him softly, "is that it's still being written." Hand in hand, they joined their family at the table, the snow continuing to fall outside, covering the land in a blanket of white that would nurture the spring to come. Just as that long-ago Christmas night, cold and lonely as it had been, had nurtured the life they now shared, a life built on chance, choice, and the courage to trust in both. 25 years after that fateful night, Emma and Caleb stood once again at the Willow Creek Depot. The old building had been renovated, turned into a small museum celebrating the town's history. A plaque near the entrance told the story of the railroad's importance to the development of the region. But for Emma and Caleb, now in their 50s with silver threading their hair, the depot held a more personal history. They had brought their grandchildren, Hope's twins, Sarah and James, to see the place where their story began. "This is where Grandpa rescued Grandma?" 7-year-old Sarah asked, her eyes wide as she looked around the restored waiting room. "That's right," Emma said, squeezing Caleb's hand. "I was stranded here on Christmas night, all alone in the snow." "Were you scared, Grandma?" James wanted to know. "A little," Emma admitted. "But then your grandfather appeared, like something out of a dream." Caleb chuckled. "Hardly a dream. Just a rancher who happened to be passing by." "But that's the magic of it," Emma told the children. "Sometimes the most important moments of our lives look like ordinary coincidences." They walked together to the platform where Emma had waited that night. The bench was different now, new wood replacing the weathered planks she had sat upon, but the view was the same, the road stretching away toward town, the mountains in the distance, the open sky above. What would have happened if Grandpa hadn't found you? Sarah asked. Emma and Caleb exchanged a glance, the question touching on possibilities they had sometimes wondered about but never truly regretted. I would have been very cold, Emma said lightly. And I might have taken a very different path in life. But I would have found her eventually, Caleb added with quiet certainty. Some people are meant to find each other, no matter what. The children accepted this with the easy faith of youth, running ahead to explore the old caboose that had been placed at the end of the platform as an exhibit. Emma and Caleb followed more slowly, their steps in the comfortable rhythm they had developed over decades together. Do you really believe that? Emma asked. That we would have found each other anyway? Caleb considered the question with his characteristic thoughtfulness. I believe, he said finally, that what matters isn't whether we were destined to meet, but what we chose to do after we did. Emma nodded, understanding. Their life together hadn't been written in the stars or guaranteed by fate. It had been built day by day, choice by choice, through winters and summers, sorrows and joys. The miracle wasn't that Caleb had driven by the depot that night, the miracle was that they had recognized in each other something worth nurturing, worth fighting for, worth building a life around. Grandma. Grandpa. Come see. The twins' voices called them forward, into the present moment, even as the past surrounded them in this place of beginnings. As they joined their grandchildren, Emma thought about the young woman she had been, waiting alone on Christmas night, not knowing that her life was about to change forever. She wished she could tell that younger self that what seemed like abandonment was actually an opening, that what felt like loneliness was the space being cleared for something wonderful to enter. But perhaps that was the lesson of their story, that sometimes the darkest moments contain the seeds of our greatest joys, if only we have the courage to endure them, and the wisdom to recognize the opportunities they present. I love you, she said to Caleb, the words as fresh and true as the first time she had spoken them. And I love you, he answered, his voice carrying the depth of all they had shared. Around them, the restored depot stood as a monument not just to the history of Willow Creek, but to their own history, a testament to how a single night, a chance encounter, and the choice to trust could set in motion a lifetime of love. Outside, snow began to fall, soft and silent, just as it had on that Christmas night so many years ago when a young teacher waited alone at the depot, not yet knowing that her wait would end with the arrival of not just a ride, but a future, a family, and a love that would last all the days of her life. The end.